In my last video, I got a request to explain exactly what my live looping setup is. So in this video today, I'm gonna do a full breakdown of my rig, including all the equipment that I'm running, the reason behind why I chose that equipment, and an explanation of my thought process when it came to configuring it all. So at the center of my rig is the Boss RC505 loop station. Now the way I have mine set up is the Boss RC505 is reliant on my MacBook Pro running Ableton Live. So Ableton Live has all of my inputs and outputs running from my audio interface, which is the Allen & Heath QU16. So from the Allen & Heath, I have all of my instruments on their individual tracks. They go into Ableton, and then in Ableton, I'm running send D to the looper station. So on that send, all the instruments that I specifically want are then going into the loop pedal, and then the loop pedal is then outputting the audio back into Ableton on its own track, which is labeled Boss RC505. And the reason why I'm using the sends feature in Ableton is because I can activate and deactivate the signals that I want sent to the loop station. So it means, for example, I only need one microphone, so I can just have this microphone going to the master out like normal, singing away. I then click a button on my Taurus pedals, which then activates send D, and then suddenly this is now sending audio to the loop station, so I can record the microphone instead of having two microphones going over here, going over there. Quicker to set up and less chance of feedback. So that's how I have that running. So down here is my Midi bass pedals. Now I actually built these pedals myself from a kit on Therman. You just got these plastic pedals and then you had to build the case yourself. So I just built this wooden case. Works really well. Made much more sense because you could go and buy some plastic full kit for like 350 quid, but this is much more durable and saved money, so it made sense. So basically, these brown pedals here, they all trigger samples that can be sent to the loop station. So if I wish to record like a bass drone into the loop station, I can do so if I wish. And then the sharp keys, the black keys, they send samples that don't go to the loop station, so they just trigger maybe sound effects such as like police sirens. So I could trigger a police siren while I'm recording some loops, and that won't be recorded into the loop station, but it's just there to set the scene while it's all building up. And then on the far right hand side of these, because I'm situated over here usually and I'm singing by my main loop station and I'm controlling that, if a chorus hits, I can only reach these pedals to trigger the samples for that section. So over here, I just have various commands mapped to these buttons. So it just means I can toggle various sends to be activated and deactivated accordingly, so I can control what audio is actually being sent to the loop station. So the Boss RC505, as I mentioned in my previous video where I compared it to the Boss RC300, I am running a Midi foot controller. Effectively, all the foot controller allows me to do is just run the RC505 with my feet, so I can record tracks, play tracks, stop tracks on two different banks. The way I have the foot controller set up is I have two scenes. So I have a track scene which lights up red when I'm clicking record, and then I have a play scene which lights up green when I click play and stop and things like that. And then to the right hand side, I have one button that's purple on both scenes that just acts as play all and stop all despite which scene it's on. Now I'm running the Roland HPD 20 drum pads. Now the reason I didn't get the SPD SX, I previously used that in some old stuff, but the thing I didn't like about it was you had to get drumsticks. So it meant I was playing guitar and then I would have to fumble around, pick up some drumsticks and start recording the drums, and it was a little bit awkward. I would then have to put the drumsticks back down. So I got the hand sonic. I got the hand sonic instead because I can do exactly what I was doing on the SPDSX, but with my hands. So I just have to throw my plectrum down now, which is much easier to pick up than some drumsticks. So they are superb. One thing I love about the hand sonic is the D-beam feature. So it has an infrared light that essentially points upwards, and it allows me to trigger samples such as crash cymbals jingly things, wind chimes. And what I love about that is it just adds a bit of finesse to your performance, because it's almost magic. Whereas if you just click a button, it's like, wow, it just doesn't have that impact. Now, one of the main reasons why I'm running Ableton Live is because of the Hansonic. Now, the samples that come on board the Hansonic are pretty good. I use some of them on some of my tracks. I do actually use the onboard effects and sounds. But for my primary drum sound, I use the Get Good Drums Modern and Massive plugin running on my laptop, and I trigger it by using the USB, sending Midi data to the laptop. Now, one of the main reasons for this was if you were just running a standard drum kit on the Hansonic, you only have the option of one EQ, which is obviously the left and right out going to the mixer desk. You can then just EQ that one sound. But the problem with that was I could never get enough presence on the kick drum. I just wanted it to be really boomy and bassy, like in your face. And it meant the whole sound was affected by that. Yes, I could have loaded in a sample that was bassier, but I still don't have that control where if I rack up to a venue and they've got huge subwoofers and the bass is a little bit over the top, I can't adjust that. So the reason I run Get Good Drums is I can run in contact. I can run auxiliary out, which then means the kick drum has its own channel, the snares have their own channel, and the hi-hats and everything. So I can EQ everything independently and apply compression and effects and reverb specifically to each track to cater for the venue and the room size that I'm in. And the drums just sound enormous. And also, one of the problems with triggering the samples on the Hansonic that are loaded in on the unit, each pad has 3 samples per pad. So a quiet sample, medium sample, and a loud sample. The problem with that is if you're doing like a snare roll, for example, from quiet to high, although they transition between samples relatively well, there's still an evident shift between each sample if you're really being specific and you're listening out for it. And I wasn't happy with that. So by running it via Midi, I have obviously the full velocity spectrum of 0 to 127. So I can really do quite a lot of fidelity on the pads, which sounds really cool. With my Boss RC505, I have 2 ways it's routed. So if you watch my previous video, I mentioned that I run an aggregated device in Ableton. So in my aggregated device, I've got my audio interface, the Boss RC505, and then the Hansonic drum pads, and they're all joined into one USB device, so my DAW can see it. Now, this works great because you can route the audio with minimum cables just via USB, but I played a gig a few weeks ago, and I got some form of electromagnetic interference coming across my USB cables, so I was getting some real strange sound. I rebooted the computer, I tried every single fix, but it was interference on the cables. And that meant I had to finish the set early. It was a 2-hour set, but I couldn't get stability on the USB cables. So I've now got a backup option. So if that ever occurs, this weird distortion and noise coming through the cables, I resort back to standard guitar jacks and the standard XLR input on the thing. Now, my main problem with using the guitar jacks as the way of feeding the audio in and out of Ableton into the mixer and the front of house is there's this sort of fuzzy sound that I seem to get, especially when you do lower frequencies with bass. One, you get a bit of white noise, like a low hiss that comes through all the cables. And then when you're recording bass, that hiss adds a bit of fuzz to the loops, which I find a little bit frustrating. I'm not really happy about that. I think I'm going to look into a way of resolving that issue on my next rig with the type of audio interface I'm going to be using instead, which I think could potentially eradicate that problem. But it's there as a backup. I still run the USB as the main thing. If you want to run USB, from the research I made, I'd recommend getting the isolated USB cables where they have the little plastic cap on. That apparently helps solve it. And also you can get like isolated USB hubs and stuff like that that will help minimize the problem. The second reason for running Ableton is the onboard effects. Yes, the Allen & Heath Q16 desk is 100% overkill for this setup because I'm only using it as an audio interface. That's soon to change on my next rig. It's going to go and just stay in my studio. But I use all the effects in Ableton because I can use the external out feature on Ableton where it links up via my USB cable and it figures out what the onboard clock is on the loop station. So it just means time-based effects such as delay and reverb on my vocal microphone are just in time with the loops. So the final bits of equipment are resident in this table here. It's relatively simple, this table. It just houses a shelf for the Nord Electro 5D. My mixer desk is here, and also all my wireless routers are hidden around the back for my in-ears and my wireless guitar packs. And at the bottom shelf is the Kemper Profiler Amp. I absolutely love the Kemper Profiler. Previously for my guitar tone, I was running the Vox MV50. It's a little 50-watt nanotube amp. Nice and portable. My main issue with it was I couldn't stack guitar pedals, so such as like distortions and things like that. If you stacked pedals, it would overload the input gauge and then the amp would just start squealing. And it was unusable if you were trying to stack stuff. So I soon got rid of that. The reason why I chose the Boss RC505, because a lot of people say, oh, you're running Ableton, why aren't you using Mobius or some other form of loop software? I originally looked at Mobius. I literally read the whole manual. I had to play about with it for weeks and it could do some cool stuff. It done exactly what I wanted it to do. I could loop the songs I wanted, do the things I wanted. It was great. I could have individual tracks, so it meant I didn't have to use sends to toggle audio that's going to the looper. I could have specific tracks that recorded drums, one track that recorded guitars, but I didn't like that it was 100% reliant on the laptop in the regard of seeing things mainly. Like I find if I play outside at a festival and it's sunny or something like that, I can hardly see the LED lights of the laptop screen. So the beauty of the RC500 is it's physical. I can click the buttons, I can see it respond, I can see it do what I want it to do. Whereas the laptop, it was just a tiny little thing. I wasn't happy with it. I really wasn't happy with it. So that was a tour of my live looping setup. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed the video. If you found it useful at all, please show your appreciation with a like and subscribe. And please feel free to leave a message with any questions you have in regard to the live looping rig. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about me, head on over to my website, benrolandsmusic.com, and please drop me a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and I just recently joined LinkedIn at Ben Roland's Music. Have a superb day and thank you so much for watching.